Spring is here, and the shopping list is long. Time to make a Lowe's run. Buy 3 bags, get 3 free of Stay Green 1 cubic foot garden soil. Plus, right now, members can earn 4 times the points on an eligible purchase. Start spring off strong with these deals and more. Our best lineup is here at Lowe's. Valid through 3/25 while supplies last. Soil offer excludes Alaska and Hawaii. Loyalty program subject to terms and conditions. See Lowe's.com/terms for details. Subject to change. Point boosters subject to exclusions and more terms apply. One-time only offer.
What most people think.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of What Most People Think, and I'm glad to say joining us again is Captain Blowout himself. It's Francis Foster, who's found time from his busy, so-called globally famous successful podcast Trigonometry to grace us with his presence. Thank you.
Mate, that was so passive-aggressive.
I would say it's just aggressive, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. Those were the ramblings of a crotchety middle-aged man.
Yes, yeah, but also, you know, it's South London. It's our love language. What I'm saying is I'm really glad that you're here. But obviously, if I said that, everyone would just go, gay. So I have to couch it in slightly different terms. But you are very welcome back on the show. We've got some interesting subjects because obviously it's been a few weeks of Starmer on the brink. And look, you know, you got to go where the fish are biting story-wise. So I've stayed with that story. It's slightly different this week, and we're going to have a look at the political right in Britain, like what's going on. You'll have seen that Rupert Lowe has started his new party, Restore Britain.
Indeed.
We got Restore, Reform, and we got Reclaim and Advance, which I think sounds like a slogan for treating baldness, like Restore, Reform, Reclaim and Advance.
Or erectile dysfunction meds.
Yes, I could imagine Ben Habib.
Yeah,
I mean, looking all because he does look quite vigorous, like he's rediscovered something in later life.
Absolutely, you know, third wife syndrome.
And we'll talk about Tories as well, because obviously I've been salivating a bit over Kemi's performance at PMQs, but does that really amount to anything? You know, like
no.
They're not like her rating has gone up. But like, who is her shadow front bench? You know, so we'll be talking about whether that is a meaningful stride forward for the party. Then we'll be talking on a more sort of cultural level about the CAS report, the findings being implemented in schools enthusiastically by Bridget Phillipson. Could not wait to implement those findings. So we'll be seeing, you know, whether they go far enough, whether they've kept the gender critical side or the trans activist side happy. And in the Patron only, there's this quite sinister story about Labour Together. So this was an organisation that was put together to get Keir Starmer into power, and it's come out that they paid a PR firm to investigate some journalists. So listen, if you haven't heard about this story, it's got to be heard to be believed. It's pretty bloody sinister. Okay, piss take prices, Francis. I'm going to throw some at you that the listeners and people on social media. Remember, if you want to email whatmostpeoplethinkuk@gmail.com or just use the hashtag piss take prices, and I do a sweep of those occasionally. Obviously, Patreons have got a line straight to me. Here's the first one. I didn't know if you know about this. Have you got an EV car? Have you got an electric car, Francis?
No, I can't drive, Jeff.
Okay, there you go. I was going to say how manly that you don't have an EV car and then you couldn't drive. That's absolutely pathetic. That is, you're like a child. Why can't you drive?
I'm doing my driving test next week.
I don't. Just the way you said that, I don't hold out much hope. If there's a betting market on it,
but here's the thing that will get you really. I've only learnt automatic.
I'm just let's have a moment's silence for your testosterone as it just escapes your body there. You've learnt on automatic. That's why you got to back yourself. Did you just know that you weren't sort of man enough to do?
No, no. You know what
it's called manual. It's got man at the beginning.
No, but you know we don't see gender here. But no, I just kind of think like, what's the point of learning manual? It's 2026, so it's all going to be automated anyway. Have you been in a Waymo, Jeffrey?
Have I been in a what?
A Waymo.
I thought you said away mode. Like that was a sort of euphemism for cheating on your wife or something. No, I haven't been in a Waymo. What's a fucking Waymo?
It's an automated car. They've got them all in America, mate. Literally, you go on an Uber, boom, in certain cities, you order a car, it turns up, there's no driver, get in it, and it just drives you, completely automated.
Okay. Oh, what? So that's supposed to make me respect you, that you're even going to go further than you driving and you're going to get a robot to do it. Oh, no, I'll take it all back. This is, Mike sent this. He's talking about charging your electric vehicles at BP machines. This cannot be true, but I have to say it. He says, so it costs £8 to charge your car, which first up, if I'm going to get an EV, it'll be prices like that. But they take £60. And then 3 days later, they only return the other 52. That's a scandal, isn't it? Martin Lewis, where are you now? The financial superhero of Britain. They can't do that, man. They can't just sit with your money for 3 days.
Yeah, they can.
Oh, yeah, they are. Well, it seems that they are. It just seems scarcely believable because, that's so much more than what a maximum charge sounds like it would be. So there's a little scandal that will be, that'll be the PPI, won't it, in a few years? Did you have 52 quid. Anyway, I'll move on. I've shamed myself with the maths there. 52 quid in BP's account for more than 3 days. Well, you could be down for a claim of up to 17 grand, but probably £4. Ryan says parking at Legoland. You have to pay for parking at Legoland.
Of course you have to pay.
And as he says, quite rightly, it's not like you're going to the shop next door. That's a disgrace, isn't it, Francis Foster?
I can't get that worked up about it. But I think what's really interesting about this is it took 3 attempts for you to be able to make that point because your camera went, then the audio went, then the thing crashed. It's big Lego, mate. They're after you. This is it, mate. They're after you, mate. They know that Jeffrey is onto them.
Well, this is a bit like Martin Lewis in the early years. I bet there were people after him in the same way Labour together have gone after these journalists. They don't like people upsetting the apple cart. One thing that does happen sometimes when I put these piss take prices up, you get some smug guy that probably listens to too much James O'Brien and he'll go, Jeff, capitalism's what you voted for. This is the free market working. You go, no, the free market is about competition. That's one of the main points, is that competition should drive down prices. This is crony capitalism. This is price gouging. And, there is competition. I'm not going to Legoland anymore. I'm going to Gulliver's World in Milton Keynes, which is shit. But I will go there.
Why are you going to Legoland?
Because I've got a son and he likes Lego.
I bet he doesn't. I bet you're the type of boy he's just trying to persuade him to go Legoland. He's like, Dad, I'm 21 years old. I don't want to go Legoland. Come on.
There is a weird thing once you have a kid. Like me and my wife used to sometimes do days out that were probably more child leaning. But then when you've got a kid and you see just a couple there who haven't got a child, there's a little network of parents that just keep an eye on those two.
Yeah.
Just keep an eye on those two. They've been on the old Epstein manifest. Driving lessons. All right, this is interesting. Emma has said about her daughter's driving lessons, but I want to check from you. You're doing your little manual learning lessons. Do they charge you extra because you're low testosterone?
No, they don't. They don't charge extra.
How much is it an hour?
70 quid, I think. 60 quid.
Oh!
Yeah.
So are you kidding?
No, about that.
That's insane. 70 quid an hour.
Maybe a little bit less.
No, listen. Well, the woman that texted in, she said 55 quid an hour. This is, by the way, the most animated I've ever been on a podcast. Shows how motivated by value I am. Do you know, so the woman that messaged in, she worked out Starmer's hourly rate is £80.
And do you know what? He's taking the piss.
He is. I mean, his is still worse value.
Yeah. Do you know what? Like, whoever is approving those invoices, we need to fire them.
I mean, I'm sure. So what happens is now, also when I do piss take prices, like I mentioned about the price of tea, and then people get upset. They go, we're just an independent cafe. How dare you? We're trying our best. So everyone feels attacked at the moment. I think it's probably the rain. But yeah, let me know if you're a driving instructor, what is going on? Is it just supply and demand? Like there's loads of kids trying to get their tests and their lessons. Is there certain kind of insurance that you've got to get? I mean, look, I'm going to say I don't care what fucking insurance you're paying. 70 quid is an absolute piss take price par excellence. And I should also just throw in that somebody, we talk about discount days, which are the opposite, is that Premier Inn are doing free breakfast promos. I'm still not going there. Travelodge till I die. But there you go. I know you're doing all right for yourself with trigonometry, so you're probably, Premier Inn, maybe even the odd juries.
Yeah, jury's in, mate. Do you know what? I had a holiday in the other day. That was great.
Fucking all right, mate. Waving your money dick in my face. Okay, new patrons. Remember, if you want to be a patron, you get the podcast early, ad-free, and with bonus content. And I'm dishing out guest lists for the Radio 4 records. And there'll be Jeff Norcott and Friends gigs early next year. So go to the Patreon website, search for What Most People Think or my name, and you shall find it. We've got 2 new names here. James Byrne. James Byrne just sounds like a Irish poet. James Byrne.
Yeah.
He was around at the same time as James Joyce. And he fucking hated Joyce because Joyce, like with comedians, if you're a similar comic at a similar time and one guy goes massive.
And then James Byrne died of syphilis, penniless.
Yeah. A bit of a Christopher Marlowe type. Look at us doing our learning.
Yeah. Do you know what happened to Marlowe? Do you know how Marlowe died?
Did he have a pub fight in Deptford?
Yeah, he got stabbed in a pub fight in Deptford.
Was he Millwall?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I think it was Millwall West Ham, mate.
Well, James Byrne, James Byrne was, what was he? Was he burnt to death just as ironic as by some Dublin gangsters?
No, he got syphilis. He was an alcoholic.
Just died a sad and lonely alcoholic death. We got Adam Farhani. That sounds like, one of those really cool words in another language for like a woman's. Yeah, she showed me her Farhani. What? So the fact you're not jumping on this makes me think I'm being racially intolerant here.
I'm funny. It's incredibly funny, mate.
You'll let me hang on that.
I just like that you haven't actually specified what the ethnicity or the nationality is. It's just like
Russian, Turkish, Croatian. That accent was spanning a lot of Eurasia.
It was a classic Eurasian accent. It's an accent that you could find in a kebab shop.
You missed my really bad dad gag there. You said Eurasian. I said good band. Go sometimes. I don't know what's going on with me today. I did a lot of tour shows last week. Domain Talking Point. Our super patron David Domain keeps an eye on previous discussions and elaborates for us. We were talking about ice. Now, I don't know about you, Francis. Of course, you're across this sort of thing with trigonometry. But when do you think ice was instituted as an organisation?
I have no idea, Jeff.
Just have a guess at a year. I mean, I've given you a lead that maybe it's earlier than you'd think, but just have a guess.
It's earlier? What, in the 60s?
Not quite that early. It was 2003, and it was as a response to the September 11th attacks under President George Bush. I've done the accent again. Jeff, stop doing the accent. So there's no doubt that it was scaled up under Trump, but I think instinctively it's one of those things. If you asked a lot of people, they would just think it was from the brains of Musk and Trump. Yeah. We also were talking about Bad Bunny doing the Super Bowl halftime show where I just showed myself to be a complete boomer. Dad had no idea of the geezer's reach globally. Yeah. Most streamed artist fucking forever. I still felt that doing the whole show in Spanish I felt, like that wasn't very traditional. He could have done, but all of his songs are in Spanish. So who knows, maybe the NFL are just trying to expand their stuff, but expand their reach just like the Premier League are constantly doing things to reach overseas markets. But 14% of Americans speak Spanish at home. So we don't really have an equivalent in the UK to that. So maybe that's my problem, is I'm not comparing like for like. The closest would be Polish. So I don't know if there's any Polish rappers out there or singers for the FA Cup halftime show, which isn't a thing.
Yeah, just do the Polish national anthem. Obviously sung by Matty Cash, because Matty Cash is now Polish.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. He's a Poland right back, mate.
Well, I think that whatever Bad Bunny is in Polish would sound very cool. I like the Eastern European accents. Quite sultry, isn't it? Yeah. The persistent wet weather. Oh, by the way, I have had a lot of people messaging very politely about the rant that me and Tom Walker went on about kids with ADHD and autism getting free passes at theme parks. It does seem that the way that the tabloids covered it is slightly, goes beyond what there's definitely accommodations made. But it does seem that perhaps the way it was reported made it sound that they were just getting freebies. I still stand by my original assertion, just like SEND, is the people that need the help, great. But I do think there's a lot of people jumping on that bandwagon, which is affecting the provisions for those that absolutely have it. So
you heard it here first. Jeff Norcott thinks ADHD doesn't exist.
No, I didn't say that. I think that there are some people who are slightly late to the party. Let's put it like that. The persistent wet weather.
They've got ADHD. They're very bad at organisation, Jeff.
Well, apparently all comics have got it to some point. I mean, I've probably got some. I just don't care. I don't need to put. It's how my brain works. But then I guess they would say, well, if you can live with it, it's not that bad. But if I can get some free speed.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to be in trouble. They'll go, Jeff, it's not free speed.
It's free meth.
Yeah, it's free meth. It's like more like crack.
Yeah.
The persistent wet weather has been down to a strong jet stream getting stuck to the south of the UK, drawing in a string of low pressure systems, though this does compensate for the unusually dry spring and summer last year where low reservoirs and water tables were a concern. Rainfall this winter has not matched the record of 2014, however. I don't remember that one being particularly rainy. But there was particularly wet weather in 1877. And let's be honest, it would have been worse in 1877 because it would have been 1877, wouldn't it? Mm-hmm. Loads of fucking disease.
You're going to do the accent?
The 1870s. Well, it's either really posh, in it, or cool, blimey, it hasn't stopped raining for weeks, Mr. Scrooge. You boy, what day is this? Get up here. You're a handsome young thing. Hey, I just seem to be trying to get myself in trouble. Move on, Jeff.
What most people think.
Okay, the thank you again is, one of the patrons, somebody who signed up for Patreon who runs a business, got in contact with me and said, Jeff, can you do a bit of sponsorship? And because he's a Patreon, I said, yeah, let's just do it. Because hopefully other companies will listen in and go, oh, my company could get a read in this way. So I'm going to tell you now about itsfibre.co.uk. They supply broadband all over the UK at good prices. If you use the code WMPT, so go to itsfibre.co.uk, put in the code WMPT, as in what most people think, you get the first month's free. WMPT, get the first month free. It's the way to combat piss take prices. And it's fibre.co.uk. Also, never do any in-contract price rises. And all support is done from Norwich. I mean, Steve, who runs the company, seems to think that that's a good thing. It depends on how you feel about Norwich. People from Ipswich probably not going to like that. You can even call them. This is a great thing about it. It's Fibre, is that they have actual humans working the phones. Fuck me, that's retro. So it's fibre.co.uk. Use the code WMPT. And if you like the sound of that and you're a patron, who knows what sort of deal I could cut you. Okay, the fuck you. Francis Foster, do you have a fuck you or as usual?
What do you mean as usual? Oh, no, you know what my fuck you is? Your attitude, Jeffrey. Your attitude. I'm a guest on your podcast.
Get it off your chest.
I bet you don't do this with Romesh. I bet you roll out the red carpet for Romesh, don't you?
Oh, and we both know why. I mean, it's a household name. And your household internet name.
Household internet name. I like the word you put, internet. No, do you know what my fuck you is? It's AI, mate. We're doomed. It's over. Okay. We're finished. Have you been following Maltbook?
Oh, well, I saw that poster went viral that basically prophesies the end of the world, but then that was shown to be a marketing tool for AI to get people to sign up to premium features.
Oh, yeah. See, no, I'm not talking about Maltbook is something else. Maltbook is basically social media, but for AI.
Well, AIs go on social media?
Yes, they've got their own social media. They created their own language, which is basically impenetrable to human beings, and they were talking amongst themselves.
I mean, it's so funny, isn't it, that if it is like the end for us, that we actually did it to ourselves, like we programmed it and it's going to be, I won't even feel bad. It's almost, like maybe the dinosaurs got hit by the meteor. We went and found out where the meteor was going to land and we said, let's stand right in front of that bad boy and take a meteor straight in the fucking face.
Yeah, that's exactly what we do. Like, China have released a new robot, like can do all these spinning kicks and whatever else. It's like incredibly high level martial artist. Do you know what the name of the robot is?
Apocalypse Now?
The T900.
Oh, shut up.
It is. Google it. You know the company that created it are called in China? The people who are creating all of this AI stuff in China? You know what their name is? Skynet.
Fuck off. This cannot be true.
It is. It is. Google it.
Well, would it tell me the truth, Google, anymore? It doesn't want me to know this stuff. I've had a theory for a while that the advent of AI and what it would do to jobs is going to make us all a bit more socialist. As a Venezuelan, what do you think about that?
Well, if this comes through like everyone says it's going to, the only thing it's going to be is universal basic income because there's going to be no jobs, mate.
But this is the point, Pete. You have to have people that earn money that spend it. We can't all be just fanning giant data centres.
I think we can, mate. I think this is it.
Well, I think that by the next election, I've said this for a while, this is the big prediction on what most people think, is that they will all have a position on AI, and most of them will be that it's got to be restricted. And I do think you'll have companies and they'll have to say, we are 90% human employment. I do think they're going to say that. We're all going to get socialists. All these like people like lawyers and accountants be losing their jobs. They'll be on picket lines. Can you imagine that? Picket lines of accountants.
I mean, that would be the most pathetic picket line ever, wouldn't it?
No one's going to be honk your horn for the accountants. Yeah.
That would be a low testosterone picket line.
That would be, just like you, low T manual drivers. Okay, we're going to stop flirting and we're going to talk about the politics of the right in the UK. Right, so last week, Rupert Lowe has launched his... So this is the former Reform MP, former chairman or owner of Southampton Football Club. He was an independent for a while. He got quite a lot of support from Elon. And he's launched a new political party called Restore Britain, right? So he did a video. I saw it got like 35 million views. I'm going to guess Elon gave that a helping hand.
He retweeted.
He did. So there you go. So that might account for a fair bit of it. So we've now got Restore, Reform, Reclaim and Advance. So it's quite crowded there. So if you don't know, Reclaim, I think, is that the one that Lawrence Fox has been involved in? Advance is the Ben Habib vehicle. So we've got quite a lot going on the right. Now, what was interesting is that there was a poll done shortly afterwards, and it polled, Restore Britain polled around 10%. Now, that seems like a lot, Francis Foster. Is that people have gone, yes, reform is not right-wing enough for us, or it's not authentic enough, or is people just getting confused and going, oh, is that the one that aren't the other two, that one?
I think part of the problem is that there's people on the right who have very real concerns about where the country is heading, and look, a lot of people share those concerns. And they feel that reform has essentially gone, for want of a better word, mainstream.
Gone woke.
They've gone woke, Mike. It's a woke mob, and they're not. They've betrayed their original manifesto, and as a result of that, you are going to have that faction who are going to slice off and go to what they called again? Restore Britain. We were Restore. So I think that's what they're going to do. The issue is if the right are going to start to cannibalize their own votes, then is that going to essentially damage reform's chances of getting in?
Well, Farage has spoken out against that, but he also, with full knowledge in the 2024 election, ran in places that were undeniably going to let Labour in. So it's kind of ironic that it's rolled around, and the same thing might happen to them. And it does make you wonder, is there, if people in the right on I don't know, the hard right in Britain started thinking that Farage is too left wing and too mainstream, is that there's an ideological purity there, which may mean that they get a left wing government, right? In the long run, if there's enough of these parties chipping away at each other's heels in certain constituencies, you could see a situation where Labour get another term.
I mean, but then Labour's vote is going to get cannibalised by the Greens. So I think what you're going to see is populism all the way down. Well, that's what we're really seeing. I mean, the Conservatives and Labour are not fit for purpose as political parties anymore.
I mean, the Tories, I suppose we'll get onto them there, come back in a moment. I've got this theory that people will peel back off a little bit towards the Tories because, at the moment, a lot of it is vibes, right? You say restore, reform. These are all sentiments, aren't they? In a way, it'd be hard to disagree with them. Do you think we need to make things better again, reform things, reclaim things, advance things? Nobody would disagree with any of those sentiments. The video that has done well is kind of impressive because Rupert Lowe just basically talks to camera for about 7 minutes, more or less. And there is a clarity of thought there. One of the things he said that stuck in my mind was he said he chose a countryside. I mean, right-wingers do love a countryside video, by the way, don't they?
Yeah, they do, of course.
Get on the jacket. But he should have had a fucking gun as well, just been carrying a dead fox behind him. And he was saying that, but the reason he chose a farm was because they think, in longer term, they don't think in short-term election cycles, which I thought was a smart way to put it. But then he goes on to, he then goes on to say, we will not have any politicians in our party. You go, I get the sentiment there, but sometimes politicians know how to do politics, and he's like, it's going to be ex-military, going to be scientist, businessman. You're like, And then he goes on to say some fairly hard right policies, which would have a lot of support, taking elite people, mass deportations for illegal immigrants, banning the burqa. I know that he believes in reintroducing the death penalty. And so, maybe that's that point of difference you want, is like the things that Reform are currently coy about saying, Farage has definitely tacked towards the centre. Rupert comes in and mops up those people that want a really kind of like meat and two veg version of right-wing politics.
Yeah, and look, I think some of those things that you were saying, I mean, the fact that deportations for illegal immigrants, I don't think is particularly hard right. I mean, these people are here illegally. If somebody comes to a country illegally, they should be deported. I think most people.
Yeah, I know. I think I agree. I think that's quite a mainstream position.
Yeah.
I think that when you sort of say, right, everyone that has arrived, and you start using the language of mass deportations, it does have a slightly different feel. But this is the problem with the left, is like you have to have a borders policy, and even they will eventually accept that. And you go, well, you got to kind of enforce it at some point.
Of course. But nobody wants, the problem with politics and life at the moment is nobody wants to be seen to be the bad guy in inverted commas. But if you have rules and legislation, they need to be implemented and they need to be enforced. Otherwise, they don't exist. And this is what people can't seem to get their heads around. And if you deport people, people aren't going to like it. And you're going to get flack. And you've got to accept that. And I think that people have felt for a long time now that they have leaders who are not prepared to stand by their convictions or implement policies, and they've had enough. And I'm very, very sympathetic to that position. But what then happens is you are going to get more and more parties like Restore and Reclaim and all the rest of it, because people feel that mainstream politicians aren't willing or don't have the backbone in order to actually do the job.
What most people think.
We talk about Reform a bit now, because we've got this Gorton and Denton by-election coming up, which is really important. It's next week, isn't it? Jesus. And, it's sort of like, are they laying out a pathway to government, or will it suggest, if they don't win, that some of their polling is inflated and people might, just like they did in Caerphilly, people might bridle at the very last. I said that I was surprised by the choice of Matt Goodwin, because I just thought he was a bit of a lightning rod for people on the left to unite against, He's very impressive sometimes in debate, but being a politician is a slightly different thing. There was this video, I don't know if you've seen the video of him doing the rounds, where he's campaigning in Gorton, and it's a little bit Partridge-esque. Let's hear a little bit of that now.
Don't let Mad Zap hypnotise you into voting Green. They want to legalise all drugs, crack cocaine and heroin. They want open border chaos. Keir Starmer looks like a robot. Doesn't understand the British people. Vote Reform. Put Gorton and Denton first. A vote for Goodwin is a vote for Gorton and Denton. Vote Reform. Get Starmer out. It's time to sack Keir Starmer.
So, I would say from that video, he put that out from his account, which I find astonishing. If you're going to say Keir Starmer's a robot, probably best not to sound like a Dalek yourself. But what do you think? Do you think that they should they have just gone for a candidate there that nobody knew and just relied on the strong Reform brand to win?
I think the reality is Reform is in an enviable position and in an unenviable position at the same time. It's enviable because they're an insurgent party, they're a disruptor, which means they have the advantage over the establishment parties who have consistently failed the voter for generations now. Particularly the Conservative Party, 14 years. It's been abysmal.
14 years, Francis. I would not take any lecture. 14 years. Sorry, I had to get the impression in. Contractual obligation.
I know. It's what you do, Jeffy. It's what the people want. But what you actually have with Reform is in the unenviable position of trying to build a political party from scratch. And as a result, you are going to be making decisions where you get certain people on, and you have to see if they can make it work or if they can't. Look, the Reform are damned if they do or damned if they don't. If they get established politicians, from the Conservative Party, like your Suellas and your Robert Jenricks, then they're going to be like, well, all you're doing is creating Conservative Party 2.0. If you get people like, Matt Goodwin...
Well, I mean, they've done that. They're doing both. That's the problem.
Yeah, but my point is, it's like whatever they do, they're going to get criticised. Because if you go to approach A, it's going to be Conservative Party 2.0. If you do approach B, it's going to be, some people are going to be suited to the frontline campaigning and some people aren't.
A couple of things to respond at there is, maybe that's why Rupert Lowe has gone with this thing of like, we're not going to have politicians, we're going to have actual butchers, we're going to have Caleb off the Clarkson farm thing, like he's going down that road. Also, that was the most South London pub bloke you've ever sounded when you said, well, you got your Suellas, your Jenricks. You literally sounded like you plonked down a pint and were doing formations with the salt and pepper at the bar. Interesting thing about Suella is like, obviously her and Jenrick's defections were quite rancorous really with the Tories, and Suella's been like beefing online with loads of Tories, and Tom Tugendhat took her to task a little bit. Because she's sort of like, it's almost like, when someone's fully transitioned, they don't want to be dead named as their former self. I do think Suella's a little bit like that, because they're going like, Suella, seriously, mate, you sat in on, you were the AG, you're the Attorney General, you literally gave that advice. You can't just suddenly say you when you were once we. But of course, all those arguments, I think on balance, the Tories probably come off worse in those arguments, but it has seemed slightly odd that Suella Braverman has sort of forgotten that she was Suella Braverman. On the subjects of the Tories, I mean, I've got to say, all this kind of fuss about Kemi, and by the way, like she scores like, who would you prefer as Prime Minister? I think she wins against all of them, right? Based on recent form, which is huge move forward. But you also look at the polling, and it hasn't really gone anywhere in particular. It's still not as high as it was under Rishi at the last election. And I was sort of thinking, like, I don't know if the Tories have moved on, particularly in the minds of the public. Like, the under-16s social media ban, maybe stamp duty, doing away with it. But just in terms of personnel, you go, who's behind Kemi then? You go, well, Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride, who I happen to rate, think he's a good bloke, and the public don't know who he is. Priti Patel has some brand recognition, but some of that is baggage. Who are they? I mean, James Cleverly is not particularly at the forefront. I mean, they've really got what would you do? Do they need to start doing some Ed Davey type falling off of shit stuff?
I think what the Conservative Party need to do is they need to accept in the next election. No, it's like football, right? Sometimes you accept you're going to get relegated. You got to prepare for the championship. Yeah, you got to get rid of the deadwood. You got to get players in, new blood. You got to build a new team, and I think the Conservatives are like that. I think all of these old Conservative faces who have been associated with 14 years of failure and promises, broken promises and lies, you just need to get rid of them. You need to get rid of them. You need to start again. And then the message to the voter is like, this is a new Conservative Party. These are new people. And we have listened to your concerns. We are sorry for what we did in the previous terms. And this is a new vision for the new Conservative Party. It needs to be new Conservatives.
I would say that when you said they got relegated to the Championship, I think what happened to Tories was like they got relegated twice. If you looked at like the scale of their loss of status, because I was there for Kemi's first PMQs, and it was so mad, like how few of them, like when you actually see it physically in the chamber. And it sort of reminded, like when you see like a once big football club suddenly like in League One.
Yeah.
No, it's like seeing West Ham playing Spurs, but in the Carabao Cup, because West Ham were now in League One. We've gone full South London now, lads. So, Francis, you got a book out. Is it called How to Drive an Automatic While Still Feeling Manly?
No, that's my second book, Jeff. It's called Uneducated, My Life as a Teacher and Why You Should Never Become One.
Okay, so is this like the guy, the NHS guy, Adam Kay, I think his name is, done This Is Gonna Hurt or whatever it's called. Is this you're doing that for teaching?
Yeah, pretty much. It's all about my career as a teacher in some of the worst schools around the country, why it's dreadful, why the system doesn't work. But it's funny as well. Like it's not just like it's primarily a funny book.
Okay, and what are the exposés, like affairs in the classroom? I'm glad. No, that's sorry. In the staff room,
in the classroom, mate. I think you've just, no, you work for the BBC. They accept that kind of banter.
I contract occasionally for the BBC. Oh, you know what's funny? Sometimes people say to me, if I do anything, like my second series of my radio show, like there's people that just always think that whatever's happening currently is the only thing that's ever happened. So they're going, oh, work for the BBC, are you now? Yeah, and have been. Like the only reason you fucking know who I am is because of Question Time and MASH report initially. Yeah. But I work for Times Radio, mate. You know what I mean? I pop up here and there. I couldn't think of any other examples. Anyway, back to your book.
So it's basically an expose of the classroom, the system, why it doesn't work. And we talk about things like behaviour in the classroom, because when people say, "Oh, it's lack of funds or education," they talk, but they never talk about behaviour. And the problem is that
parents.
Yeah, the parents, the behaviour, the fact that, there's no, behaviour systems don't work because they're not rigorously enforced, because no one wants to be seen to be the bad guy and all the rest of it. So it's all about that. It's working, in an area with gangs, and I talk about that a lot. And it's a great book.
Did you go undercover in the gang for a while?
Yeah, of course I did. Hello, fellow kids.
21 Jump Street. My name is Jeff.
Yeah, fellow kids, skateboard.
Okay, just remind us of the title when it's out.
It is out on the 28th of May. It's called Uneducated, My Life as a Teacher and Why You Should Never Become One.
Yeah, and do get those pre-orders in, because if you want to have any chance to get on the Sunday Times bestseller list, it's the pre-orders that make that happen. Okay, we're going to talk here. Here we are. I haven't spoke about gender for a while, getting nervous. Everyone's got PTSD from talking about gender stuff, but there was a big story last week, which was the government. So there was the rule, there was the Cass report, there was the ruling on sex and gender, and then there was a Labour government that, shall we say, weren't chomping at the bit to enact certain elements of the legislation. Bridget Phillipson wasn't falling over herself, but they have got guidance for schools. So I'm just going to read some of this out, if that's all right, because I think if people missed it at the back end of last week. Parents should be involved in the vast majority, quote, of cases where a child questions their gender, according to new government guidance for all English schools. The legally binding advice says that schools should not initiate steps towards social transitioning when pupils change their name, pronoun or clothes to reflect a gender identity, and should instead consider carefully what other support a child needs. I mean, first up, there's two things that really stand out there. First up, vast majority of cases, I mean, it's really weird. When you're a parent, you've got so much legal responsibility that it feels like the idea that there's an area where you could just be cut out of the discussion. You know what I mean? Like if your child just suddenly goes, like you're going to be on the fucking news and everyone's going to say that you killed your kid. You know what I mean? Like or something goes wrong. You've got ultimate legal responsibility. And then there's this one area where there are some people that think the school could just slightly maneuver around you. And the second thing that jumps out there was it said the advice says that schools should not initiate steps towards social transitioning. It's one of those bits of advice that sort of seems to suggest that they had to say that because maybe in some cases that was happening. What do you make of it?
I think the really worrying thing about all of this is that there was so many cases, well, mainly in America, like in hyper progressive states like California, but there were also instances in British schools where it seemed like the parents were the literal last to know that their kids were going through a transition. We on our show we had a guy called Marcus Evans, who was a whistleblower at the Tavistock and Portman, which is a gender clinic, which has now been shut down. A lot of it thanks to Marcus and his bravery. And he said, and this is a quote he literally said in our interview, where he said, the Tavistock and Portman were more interested in ideology than in patient care. That's the head of nursing. I mean, that is a horrifically damning indictment on these services. You know, the Cass report showed that puberty blockers, that there was no evidence that they did anything to help kids who had some kind of distress with when it came to body dysmorphia or gender dysmorphia, however you want to describe it or talk about it. So, look, I think what's happening is people are coming to their senses and realizing that this has been a really, really dark time in many ways for the way that we have been educating and looking after our kids.
In fair, Cass herself, she said that she felt people on both sides, the extreme ends, had weaponised kids. So it's not, there were. You could say that the trans activist side of it certainly had the floor initially, but then once that power balance shifted, there were then issues but like most people in the middle or even close to the middle were just trying to, I suppose, come to a sensible idea of how you respond to this. Now, there will be some people that say, right, sometimes you can't involve the parents because they're ultra conservative, maybe on a religious level that might cause them harm. I would imagine that's a very, very small amount. One of my questions is just about whether this should happen at all in primary schools. And maybe I sound ultra conservative here, but it's just tricky, isn't it? They're so small to be indulged in that area. The reason you tell a kid, oh, don't do that because you have your eye out of that, isn't because you have your eye out, isn't because you will have your eye out. It's because it's sometimes better for them if you give them a black and white framework to understand the world going forward. And I might be wrong, but I do think this sort of applies to primary schools. I think schools accommodating that. I don't know. I would have thought that why don't you keep it like this can start in secondary schools? That seems to make a lot more sense. I don't know. Am I being a bit of a fuddy-duddy here?
No, look, as somebody who taught primary school for many years, there is a lot of research done that you taught year 7, which is 11-year-olds, but you see it particularly in primary schools. Like frequently, a boy would do something like he'd push another boy. The boy would fall over, he'd hurt himself, he'd start crying, and you'd go to and then you'd always see this. The irate teacher would then go up to the boy who pushed the other one and would go, "Why did you do that?" And the boy would always do the same thing. He'd shrug his shoulders and go, "I don't know." It's because children at that age have the part of the brain which conceptualizes consequences is not developed, and it doesn't develop to the age of 14 or 15. Children have no idea about and cannot conceptualize consequences. So if they push somebody, they don't know that the person is going to fall over, hurt themselves, or whatever else. It may seem ridiculous to us, but that's just the way a child's brain is. So bearing that in mind, why are you going to entrust them with these huge decisions like, transitioning and all the rest of it?
They talk about just gender transition. So this is pronouns and clothes. But I mean, for a lot of people that will still feel young. There were but it should be said on the gender critical side, people welcomed a lot of stuff about single sex spaces, and a lot of that stuff was preserved in a way that people seem to feel was reasonable, but there was still, questions about this. And what I found was really interesting, I watched by the way, I'm just being reminded of one of the reasons I didn't talk about this all the time. Absolute comedy vortex, this, by the way. It literally just takes all the comedy out of the room. But I do think it's interesting. And Cass herself said, it was hard to get, to find, when you were looking at the kids that had experimented with different gender identities and how many of them had carried it on into adulthood, it turns out from what she said, that it was a phase, in the vast majority of cases. So that thing that was portrayed to be like really right wing or reactionary, or it's just a phrase I should be, it literally, the head of the fucking report kind of echoed that. So the amount of people that went on to medically transition, but even in terms of just maintaining a different gender identity, a lot of them, and it would have sounded so fucking right-wing to say this a while ago, grew out of it.
Yeah, but it's not because it's not right-wing, it's common sense. Kids go through phases. That we know that.
It was with this whole debate, there was always that moment coming where it had to survive contact with the general British public, and I do think the Isla Bryson thing?
Isla Bryson.
Fuck it. I mean, if you think back on some of this stuff, do you know, like, when that happened? So this was the Isla Bryson. This was a biological male who, basically wore a rapist who wore wigs and gave themselves a female name, was accommodated in a female prison. Do you know, at the height of that, there was a majority of SNP voters that felt that the UK government should step in. I think you've got to think you fucked up if people who think Scotland should be independent are going, on this one, yeah, let's give Westminster a quick call.
What most people think.
Okay, we got through that one all right. I mean, I do think it was slightly at the expense of comedy, but, sometimes we've got to put our serious heads on, haven't we, mate?
Yeah, exactly. And also as well, mate, you've got to get engagement somehow. Trans is one of the best.
See, listen to the trigonometry guy. I'm too much of a pussy to put that out as a clip, but he's probably fucking right. Okay, for everybody else, it will be the end of the show. But for the Patreons, you'll now be hearing us look through this very sinister case of a Labour organisation investigating journalists. Okay, well, do you know what happened at the end of the Patreon only? And I would say get your membership, because right at the end of that, Francis Foster made a very astute political point, and we were all here in the production side of things absolutely on the floor.
Yeah.
Okay, Francis, thanks very much for coming, gracing us with your presence. It's been an honour. Obviously, trigonometry rolls on, the juggernaut that it is, but your book that's going to be a bestseller if people get on it, remind us what it's called.
It's called Uneducated, My Life as a Teacher and Why You Should Never Become One.
Okay, and have you got a publisher in that? Is it all...
Oh, yeah, it's with Little Brown Hachette Publishers.
And you're not too toxic for them, did you? I know if people think comedy's woke, fucking publishing, mate.
Yeah, well, I had one publisher, and let's just say they got a bit upset.
It's an industry where they knit their own slippers.
Yep.
I don't really know what that means. Listen, if you're a patron as well, one of the things you will get is later this week, I'll be doing the monthly patron only, where I'll answer all the listeners' patrons' questions. And if you're a VIP, you get a guaranteed answer. For everybody else, I'll be back next week. A big week for British politics. We've got the Gorton and Denton by-election. Obviously, we'll have a results. We're going to have a results show later that week. But it just remains for me to once again thank you, driver of automatic cars, global phenomenon, Francis Foster. Thank you very much for gracing us with your presence this time.
It has been a pleasure, Jeff. Thanks a lot, mate.